guys, Introspection here, and I'm back with another video. So today I'm going to be adding to the Gaming Translator series. If you're not too familiar with it, it's essentially a series of videos where I take topics that gamers generally have a hard time explaining and put it in a way that's easier for non-gamers to digest. Now, if you're one of the, 5 people I think it is who regularly watch these videos, you might recall a little while ago I went ahead and posted a video explaining why you can't pause an online game. Now, among that very small audience, it seemed to be pretty well received. But then about 2 weeks ago, somebody going by the name Elecktra King, cool name by the way, went ahead and posted this. Then my mom says, why play online game? Essentially meaning, why would you bother playing an online game? Clearly there's a lot of caveats and inconveniences. There's so many other games that are offline, and frankly just about every gamer who plays online at some point probably had access to those. So why would you bother playing online? Now, I actually had to think about this one for a little bit because surprisingly enough, this is the first time I've actually heard this very specific ideology. I've heard a lot of the other ones. That's how I'm able to make the Gaming Translator series. But this very specific one, not one I've encountered before. So I did have to think about it for a little bit. And I want to say thank you to Elecktra King, cool name again, for giving me this idea for a video. And if Mrs. Elecktra King is watching, I just want to say, hi, my name is Introspection. I'm a YouTuber dedicated to giving different information and perspectives. Hopefully I can talk to you with an open mind, and who knows, maybe I can get you on one of these games. Maybe not, but we'll see. But in any case, I do also want to say thank you for taking the time to actually watch this video. Now, on to the actual topic of this video. Why would anybody want to play an online game? Now, if you're a gamer who's had even a minute amount of experience with either of these kinds of games, even if you don't prefer online gaming, there's a good chance when you heard this question, like myself, you sort of had to sit there for just a second, kind of scratching your head as to why someone would ask this kind of question. But after thinking about it for just a few seconds, it actually made a lot of sense. Think about it this way. Imagine you're in India. You ask somebody there, hey, what's the tallest tower in all of India? They'll probably respond, well, there's actually 2 towers. They're called the Imperial Twin Towers. Makes sense. But if you go ahead and go to America, Sweden, Russia, China, you name it, unless they have some sort of advanced knowledge on all the architectural accomplishments of the world, there's a pretty good chance they're not going to know what the tallest building, or in this case 2 tallest buildings in all of India are. And of course, this isn't because they like asking odd or weird questions, it's simply because they're really not an environment that people commonly know that very specific piece of trivia. So for a gamer who is regularly exposed to these kind of things, it seems kind of an odd question to ask, but to somebody who's just not in that kind of atmosphere, it makes perfect sense to ask this kind of question. So to simplify it, I'm going to break it down piece by piece. Now, the first and most obvious reason is to be able to hang out with friends who can't physically be with you. There are multiple reasons why this can happen. Perhaps you had to move away, perhaps they're sick and they can't leave their house, or perhaps they're just too young to physically transport themselves and their parents simply do not have the time or capability to get you to your friend at that very specific time. So it makes sense that you're able to play with them online. Now, there's a good chance that you've noticed a lot of times we'll play with people who we don't know, and a lot of times we don't even talk to them online. So then at that point you might be thinking, okay, so what's the point there? Well, think about it this way. Think about the game Solitary, and then think about the game Go Fish. Now there's a good chance that at some point in your life you've played both of these games, or at the very least understand the basic principles of both of these games. Now, as you likely know, the rules, the principles, and most importantly, the experience of playing Go Fish is extremely different from the rules, principles, and experience of playing Solitary. You might prefer Solitary over Go Fish, vice versa, or perhaps you would like to indulge in both of them because the experience of both of them is different and you genuinely enjoy both of these kinds of games. You could say that perhaps it's the same game because they both use cards. But when you look, again, principles, rules, and most importantly, the experience of the game, they end up being drastically different. So then you might think, okay, but don't a lot of these games, online games, have an offline mode? Well, yes, but not in the way you're probably thinking. Now, a lot of times, an online game just downright doesn't really have an offline mode at all. But when it does, it tends to be one of a few things. The first of which being a practice area. What happens is that a game such as, say, an FPS will give you an area where you can set up targets and practice certain maneuvers and techniques without having to worry about people blasting you. This way, when you go ahead and go into the game, you will have already been able to practice it in peace so that you will be able to execute it in the actual game. Or perhaps a racing game that has different tracks where there isn't anybody racing, so you can practice, say, drifting without worrying about anybody smashing you off the track. But these aren't really the game, that's just practice. That'd be like saying the jogging that basketball players will do before they actually play the game is the actual game, which I think the majority of us would agree really isn't the case. The other thing that will happen is that it'll be a completely different game. See, what will happen a lot of times is that an online game will have an offline mode that's what you would call an RPG, which is essentially just a story being told as you're playing the game, while the online mode is a competition style game. So even at that point, playing the offline mode is a completely different experience than playing the online mode. And for a lot of people, they might prefer the online mode, vice versa, or they just like to do both because they genuinely like both experience and would like to have them both. And then the other thing that will often happen is that it'll have an offline mode, which is essentially, in essence, the same game as the online mode, but it's not the same experience. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you're new and you really don't know how to play the game, the NPCs or non-player characters tend to be really hard to beat. But after you get accustomed to it, the non-player characters are really just restricted to whatever algorithms they're originally programmed to. So after a while, it gets really boring to race the exact same thing over and over again. And on top of that, you really don't see any creative ways to do anything interesting in the game because all you're seeing is the AI do the same thing over and over again. But when you're in an actual competition with real people, it becomes far more competitive because the people playing the game become more capable of doing so. So they far surpass the AIs most often than not. And on top of that, they find new ways to actually play the game. So playing against them or with them becomes a lot more fun and interesting. Now, of course, the cherry to all those reasons is, of course, because there's not really the same sense of competition when you're playing against the AI. I know that sounds silly when you hear it like that, but think about it like this. If you've ever been in any sort of competitive field, whether it was a club, perhaps you were in the speech and debate club, perhaps you were in an art club and you competed in who can create the best things, perhaps you were in any kind of sport where you competing against different schools, you know a great satisfaction came in when, in a very sportsmanlike manner, you were able to show that your skills matched up, that your skills held up. But when you're doing that against an AI, granted, it can be good practice for when you actually go do it, it tends to ruin some of the satisfaction of actually playing through the game. Now, to summarize all of the points I made down into just one point, it really just comes down to it's not the same experience. Now, that's not to say that an online experience is better or worse than an offline experience. There are plenty of people who prefer one or the other or just genuinely enjoy both. But to say that they're the same thing or one can substitute for the other isn't really entirely correct. Think about it this way. Imagine that there was a biker. You told the biker, hey, you should just go skateboarding. They both have wheels. They're essentially the same experience. Now, if you've ever done both, you know very well that they are completely different experiences. One might prefer biking over skateboarding and vice versa, and they might be people who just genuinely enjoy both. But they're definitely not the same thing. So I do hope that I was able to help people understand as to why somebody would actually bother, because I admit there are a lot of caveats and inconveniences when it comes to online gaming. Now, if you have any questions on my points or wanted to make any comments, go ahead and leave it down in the comment section down below. If you guys had any other ideas for this series or videos just in general, also go ahead and leave that down there. One other thing, go ahead and tell me what you guys thought of my intro. I'm trying out several different things because, like I said at the beginning, I'm at like 5 people regularly watching these videos. So I'm trying to change everything up, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and I'd really like you guys' feedback as to what works and doesn't work. Otherwise, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell button. I post every other Sunday. So until next Sunday, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.